bless you.
Good morning to you, Bella. How are you?
Yeah.
I'm very fine, thank you.
Bella
Good to see you
Montrage.
too.
Roland, he's back again with a mischief, right?
I know, right?
Who's called that, though? Whose name is that?
Hajia for real.
Ah, that's her name?
Yeah.
Okay, you look like her, though.
Okay.
Say that again.
Roland,
I think we're related.
Roland looks like her.
We're relatives of Montrage.
Are we? Are you sure you want to be making those statements now? The FBI is watching, you know, but it's a very sad situation, I must say.
You mean it's sad for the FBI or for us?
Oh, generally it's a sad situation because, I mean, everybody wants to make it in life. You get what I mean? And it's just unfortunate. And I'd always say that social media contributes to how young people perceive wealth and how they think they should make the money. At this point, there are so many young people who don't care what it takes to make the money. And that's where the problem is. Unfortunately, as a society, we seem to gloat over people who have unexplained wealth, but for some reason can splash it all over. And we give them that much reverence. And that's why we're all where we are today. So maybe we need to start questioning beyond just what we see on the surface.
Maybe let's hold on for a while. The case has not been decided yet. She's
No.
pleading
I'm not
guilty.
speaking with regards to her in
Great.
particular. This is a problem that we face for a long time.
Yeah,
and we need
that's
to stop acting like ostriches. Because there are so many people
think we
who
have a problem.
splash their wealth on social media, publicly, everywhere, and we don't question it. You see, so just like how we're saying that a lot of young people are being swayed by all kinds of, you know, bad habits on social media, we need to start questioning how people make their money.
Yeah.
You know, just so we don't end up just praising anybody and everybody because we've seen money. That's
But
why I'm
if
saying
we're starting to question them, how are we questioning them? I think it's so broad a subject that although we can generalize and make it very small, but it is not something easy for us to deal with.
That's
how
true.
are we going to question somebody who has made his or her money and decided to show off the money on social media? If the person is doing legitimate business, for instance.
Well, to be honest, when I say we need to question it, beyond you and I also just taking a step back and asking ourselves, are we sure this person made it this way? And why should I be influenced? Because that person may have done it genuinely, but it may have taken 20 years. That person may have cut corners to do it in 1 year. But you need to cut your coat according to yourself. So when I say question, I'm saying that question how they made it and ask yourself, am I sure I want to go on this path to also make this amount of money? If not, let me bide my time and wait till I've worked hard enough to get it. At the same time, we have authorities who should be questioning some of these things. In the US, you can't have money just, I mean, of course, they have some bad nuts. But naturally, if you have a certain amount more than you receive in your account, you know, in your account at a point, they'll start asking you questions. How did you receive this money? Where did it come from? Do we have that kind of system here? I don't think so.
No, we don't.
We don't.
I think this one closely follows the issues of hush puppy, especially.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about this, I do love what you said about we don't have to behave like ostriches. And I think what the Western world do better, including even the ones that are developed in Asia, those countries, is they tend to monitor you for a very long time because you need to have a certain prima facie evidence before you troop onto somebody and say that leveling any sort of claims. And apart from Miss Montrage, the issue of hush puppy related to a certain short period of extravagance showing on social media that alerted authorities, but also based on a mistake that was done on an email that maybe inadvertently was posted on a social, you know. So it talks about while you're getting that sort of wealth, if you are getting that sort of wealth, what sort of benchmarks do you give to yourself? How are you also making sure that you don't get caught? Secondly, what you're doing, if it's illegitimate, you certainly would have those institutions come up to say or monitor you. How come? And we've seen a certain number of cases of drug bust, etc., for individuals in the US, the UK, and that's how they do it. They just monitor you for a very long time, and then they make some of those things. But as it is, we're a society that is growing. And I think we have to ask our governments deep questions. Because if we always benchmark ourselves with the US, the UK, etc., and they tend to do these, why is it that we're not able to do it? It's a big question that we have to ask. People have unexplained.
Is it a matter of not being able to do it or not being willing to do it?
I think
That's
we're
the
not,
other issue as well.
I think as it stands, we're not able to
Are you
do
sure?
it. Yes. I mean, although
We're
we're comparing
capable.
ourselves
Yes,
to...
we are.
We are capable.
We're
I don't
Well-
think we're ready to do it.
Although we're comparing ourselves to these, countries and all of that, we're not at their levels yet.
Because we
The
don't want to
mechanisms that we
be.
have to survey, for surveillance, for investigations, I mean, truth be told, we're not there. We may not have them yet. Although it may seem like we're not willing, but I don't know whether it's a question of the egg and the chicken, whether we should be willing before we get the ability to do it, or should get the ability before we develop the willingness to do it. I think that's
Cosby,
something...
It's human beings that develop the system in the Western
Well,
world, in the
true,
European
yeah.
countries. It's human beings. We're humans as well. I just think that it's a mentality issue. And
Yeah.
we're not ready to move from our comfort zone.
That
And that's
is
why
true.
we're where we are.
That is
If we
true.
really want to make it work, there are black people who move to some of these countries, and they're some of the best. In fact, they're pulling a number of us to come and develop their countries for them. So that means that we have the capability. But are we willing to do it as a people? A greater number of us, unfortunately, are comfortable being in that space. And so even if you try to change it, you'll get a whole lot of people coming to attack you, the person who's trying to do the good thing. And that's where the problem is for
Yeah.
me. I don't think we're ready.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think also we're not ready because those who are supposed to take or enforce the regulations themselves somehow are compromised.
Exactly.
Because we all have been in industry where we interface with political actors or politically exposed persons, and all of a sudden they are in a certain space of wealth that are unexplained. And so with other assigns in the society, they are not able to. And that is why we are where we are.
Exactly.
I think that we need to take a deeper look at ourselves to say, is that the right path of development or growth for a human society? And how does that set some precedents for those who are coming up?
Yeah.
And I think it's very important
It is.
so that we don't tend to. Because what happens is that individuals tend to have, oh, Crosby, you can go.
Thank you, Roland.
Individuals tend to have friends.
Yeah.
And we have these individuals making friends with all of us. And they say that, show me your friend
And
and I'll show you your character. And the assumption is that because I'm walking in the space, everybody else is in that space and doing the same thing. And so we're all painted with the same negative brush.
Unfortunately.
So
Unfortunately. And not to digress, but still talking about the mentality issue. So even when it comes to ensuring that we don't litter, just this weekend, I was watching the NDC primaries.
Yes.
And their Denton constituency, because that was the one that I really focused on. Now, by the time they were done voting and the people had dispersed, if you see the level of filth that was left behind at one of the polling centers, I couldn't believe it. And I just kept asking myself, how many adverts do we have to do about keeping your environment clean before people would wake up and realize that, okay, when I'm done using a piece of paper or plastic or whatever, I should find a bin somewhere and drop it in. If there's none, put it in your bag, put it in your pocket and take it home. But we're not willing to, because I'm sure that, the local institutions, individuals who have influence, they have constantly talked about keeping your environment clean. But we gather and the first thing we do is litter. And we are not willing to change our minds about it because we've advertised so many times. We can't tell ourselves that it's because people are ignorant about it. And that's why I keep saying that I don't think that as a people we're ready to change. Because if we are, we will make deliberate efforts to correct the wrongs. But it's as if it's just one person that wants to change and a number of people
rest.
just don't. And that's why we're stuck where we are.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
I think the negative part, even, is when we have only a few trying to change and then they are
Yeah.
called names.
Exactly.
So, and sometimes while it looks like we're digressing, it's also because the issues are related. You take Professor Frimpong Boateng, somebody who could have had the best of life as the first heart surgeon in Germany, rising from Europe, etc. He could have stayed there and be comfortable.
Yeah.
He decides to come down. And his report is leaked and all these, he's called names, etc. So it talks about those who want to do good being few versus those who are not doing right by either the public space or themselves or the general society. So we'll see how that goes. All of us don't have to be painted with, especially those who are related with such people in the space. And I think that we have to take a deeper reflection. But, it's not going to be the first. So we'll see how. I love Hush Puppy. In terms of the Instagram post.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, when it comes up that a lot of investigations have been undertaken for a very long time, and then you have a lot of people in the loop, and you look at how the outcomes by way of unexplained wealth is, we have to be disappointed in ourselves. Is that the right way to develop?
Yeah.
No.
It is not.
You know.
It is not.
Okay. We have to go for a break. When we come back, we'll speak to legal practitioner and lecturer Justice Abdullahi or lawyer Amwakwa Buedu on a number of significant related issues on the subject. Well, it's a montage morning. You know, we're taking a break. We'll right back.
FBI is watching you. And well, yes, this morning we're here for you, and so you can join in the conversation. The hashtag is TV3Newday. But let's cross over to the phone lines. We have lawyer Kingsley Amwakwa Buedu, and if you just tuned in, news coming in yesterday officially indicates that Ghanaian influencer and musician Hajia, whose real name is Mona Motraj, has been extradited to the U.S. in an alleged $2 million romance scam targeting older single Americans. And if you look at the details, it says that if she's found guilty, she could go in for about 20 years. But that depends on whether the courts find her guilty or not. Let's speak to lawyer Kingsley Amwakwa Buedu to get some insight on this matter and how it could eventually develop. Good morning, lawyer. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
I hope you're well.
I am very well.
In a case like this,
Thank you very much.
all right, in a case like this, how is it treated?
All right. So the extradition is an agreement between states. And so if there's no prior agreement, then a state cannot be requesting another person to be extradited to his country. Now, between U.S. and U.K., they've always had that agreement. In fact, U.S. has such agreements in most of the countries. It has it with Ghana, where if there's any criminal or any fugitive which has run to that country, the state will assist it in extraditing the person to the other country. So there's a requesting country, and there's the country that is being requested to submit to the person. Now, it would have been, if you like, they would have gone to court in Ghana. So the person, she would have been arrested in Ghana, gone to court, her lawyers would have come to defend it, and if they are not successful, then the High Court judge would order the extradition to the U.S.
Okay.
In UK, it is much simpler because they've always had this agreement or arrangement between them. Now, the charges are conspiracy, receipt of stolen money, money laundering, wire fraud. Remember that she could have been tried in absentia.
Yeah.
If she's tried in absentia, she's convicted, then she's just been extradited to go there and serve a sentence. In this case, she's just going there. She's going there for the trial itself. We understand she's pleaded not guilty.
Yes.
As the normal, who alleges must prove and all that must be established first. And then if she's convicted, then sentencing will follow. I hope I'll be able to summarize it in a GC for you.
I see. But in this case where she has pleaded not guilty, does that also sort of affect her case? Especially knowing that the FBI, in most cases, would monitor you for a number of years, try to gather enough evidence before they pick you up for whatever crime they're alleging you may have committed.
Okay, so for our lawyers, we always advise that if you think you haven't committed the offense, you plead not guilty.
Okay.
And from a legal perspective, when we're defending someone and is not guilty, it's easier for us because criminal law is what we call the black letter law. So there are elements of every crime. For instance, if you're saying there's conspiracy, you must establish that there were more than herself because you can't conspire with yourself. And so you need to establish she's conspired with someone else with the intention to commit the offense. All right. So all these are elements that must be proven. If one of them is missing, you cannot convict her on conspiracy. If you are saying receipt of stolen money, she must have known that the money is stolen. The fact that someone is giving her money and the money is stolen doesn't mean she's a criminal.
Okay.
But she must have known, and it's an objective test, not subjective test.
Okay.
She must have known that this money coming in, just like receiving stolen goods, it should come across that there's something not right about it. You can't just be walking on the streets of Ghana and someone gives you a phone to buy. You want to inquire where the person got the phone from, if it's used before, who was the owner and all that before you buy. Otherwise, then you did not exercise due diligence. And so all these must be inquired into. How do we say that the money was stolen? Did she know about it? How do you make sure that she wasn't negligent about it, or she actually partook in the stealing and receiving it? Money laundering. These are all technical issues. Money laundering, as we know, launder is to wash. And so is it contaminated or tainted money that it was washed? How was it washed?
Yeah.
Is it a fact that it was, there's wire fraud? And so there are things that they will have to take their time to go into. So I wouldn't have advised Hajia for real to just go and say guilty unless he knows he's guilty. So these are standard, normal legal processes that we have to go into.
So in a case where it is discovered that, you know, she may have received money, but she was not aware that it was stolen money, then she could argue her way out with that.
Precisely, but it's not that she's not aware. It is that the circumstances around it, no one would think that it is stolen money.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
And it is said that she positioned herself in such a way that she would marry old men or things like that. If an old man sees Hajia for real and he's infatuated about her and he gives her money, there's nothing wrong about that.
Okay.
Depending on, no matter what the quantum is, there's nothing wrong about that. Unless she is inducing that act. In which case, if it was in Ghana, we could have even talked about defaulting by false pretense. Was there false pretense that she's in a position to marry him or whoever it was? And that is induced. So there are steps that you need to go through. And it will be that one of them, she cannot be convicted on one or two of these charges.
Okay.
It could be that you go and look at it again and bring fresh charges. There are several things that can happen. And so a lawyer, we hear that a lawyer has admitted that he received money from several others. Okay? As to whether she was swindling them, it is a different thing altogether.
Okay. Well, we have to wait for the...
So we can't just stick on face value like, yes,
Yeah.
she $2 million, yes, and therefore she's no. The law doesn't work like that. You need to establish every single element of the crime that she's charged with.
Okay, so if it says that she faces up to 20 years in prison, that could reduce. What could be the least amount of time if she's found guilty of any of the charges? What would be the least amount of time she could face?
We can't tell. So the law gives the minimum and the maximum, but we can't tell because every crime and even her demeanor in court and the preparation she took, if she's convicted, they will look at how she prepared and the industry she put into it to sentence her.
Okay.
So we can just leave it at up to 20 years.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if my colleagues would want to ask any question. All right. Thank you.
I wanted to find out whether what's the possibility of being acquitted
and discharged, acquitted and discharged.
Or maybe something like
Are
that.
the chances very slim to be acquitted and discharged in this case? Oh, he's gone.
I think we lost him.
Okay.
Oh, well, that was lawyer Kingsley Mwakwa Boydru, by the way, and he's
So
a
he's
law
still
lecturer
on.
as well.
He's still
Oh,
on.
he's still on?
Good morning. Are you still on, sir?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, so we're asking that are there any chances that she could be acquitted and discharged?
Oh, yes. Yeah, because you see, for criminal law, as I said, there are elements of each crime. If one element is missing, you cannot convict. If on the balance of it, you are not sure, because the law says that you are proving beyond reasonable doubt. So if there's a shade of doubt, and that doubt is reasonable, you can't convict.
Okay.
It's not a civil matter where it's on the balance of probability. The moment it tilts slightly in favor of Hajia, you must acquit and discharge.
Okay.
And so the prosecution will have to do a good job. And just like you said, they normally monitor for a long time, gather all pieces of evidence before they take action. And so let's watch and see what happens.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time this morning.
So he's saying
lawyer
she'll be
Amoko
acquitted.
No, there's a chance though, but until it's proving otherwise, it's still what it is right now. So we wait to see.
All right.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time, sir. All right, I think it's time now to cross over to Johnny's Bite. Are we ready? Oh, okay.
Well, so we have a question being asked by Dr. Agbamoji.
Okay.
Agbamoji.
Ebemka.
Bella. The way you're wearing green, it's not. Me too. You see the color I'm wearing. Do you know what is that?
What just
Agbamoji.
happened?
I don't know.
Do you know Agbamoji?
What's that?
Just
You know
tell her
Agbamoji?
that she's looking
Life's
beautiful.
Road. You're looking beautiful. So
think about what? Life's
Dr.
Road.
Agbamoji.
Agbamoji.
Is what? Life's Road.
Agbamoji.
Life's road.
Agbamoji.
Oh, the road to life,
The road
right?
to life.
Yeah, the road to life. Yeah.
What's that got to do with green and blue? And
He's
All right,
asking
so,
what?
He's asking that, so how does that become a subject of discussion, the Montrage issue?
But it's everywhere this morning. That's the number one news everywhere. It was on News 360. It's on the New York. It's everywhere in the
New York
world,
Post,
and
yeah,
it's New York Post and all. So it's worth talking about. It's making the headlines, and of course, it involves a Ghanaian.
Yeah.
So I don't see why we can't talk about it.
And even
if it's
before-
everywhere.
Even beyond that, I also think that we need to get educated on some of these issues. We cannot
Right.
ask questions like, how does this become a subject
Yeah.
of conversation? Because we need to understand
Right.
what exactly the details are and how we can also better, learn from this
Yeah.
matter. That's why we're speaking to a lawyer. But anyway, let's cross over to Johnny's Bites now.